Okay, now that we've talked about cows and chickens on the algebra farm, in other words, a way of setting up problems and knowing that we need to keep the variables and the constants separated from each other in order to solve it, let's do some problems. All right, so let's take a look at this first problem here. We've got 3x plus 2 equals 24. So I've got three groups of something, I'm adding two more of something, and I'm getting 20. So I'm going to set up my fence here, and then I'm going to kind of look at, sort of what's what here. And let's just do this with a highlighter, and we'll do this once or twice until you start to get it. Well, my variables, this is all I have for my variables, is a 3x. And then for my constants, it looks like I have a plus 2, and I've got this over here. So the big rule is whenever anything goes over to the other side of the fence or it changes sides on the equation, its sign changes. So, and the way to think about that is that balanced equation, right? If I'm going to get rid of my 2 right here and move it over to the other side because the chickens should be together. I should have probably made those yellow and made the 3x brown, but oh well. So we're going to get rid of that. If I do that over on this side, I got to do it to this side. So and that keeps the equation balanced, all right? So 3x plus 2 equals 20. I'm getting rid of the 2 on this side. I'm moving it over to the other side. When I move it over to the other side like that, it is changing signs. So that leaves me with 3x because plus 2 and negative 2 cancel. And then you have 20 minus 2, which gives me 18. Now this is down to one step, and I should know how to solve this, right? I look at what's being done to the variable. Well, now what's being done to the variable is it's just being multiplied by 3. And so the inverse, or the opposite of that, is to divide by 3. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and I'm going to get x because this cancels. And then 18 divided by 3 is 6. And then I think it's a really good idea with these problems is just to go back in the problem and just substitute 6 in to the side with the variable and see if it works. Well, 3 times 6 is 18. 18 plus 2 is 20. And 20 is equal to 20 on the other side. So I call that funnel style. So that looks like you got the right answer there. Let's try another one. 5 plus 2n equals negative 1. All right, so negative signs, you're going to have to get very comfortable with negatives. So if I have this problem, we're gonna look at this. My variables are right here, and then you always include the sign just to the left of something. And if it doesn't have a sign like this 5, that means its sign would be positive. So I've got this 5, which belongs over on the other side with the other chickens, right? We decided we're calling the numbers chickens and the variables cows, right? So we're going to subtract this because that is the opposite of what's being done. Right now, the 5 is adding to the 2n. We want to get rid of it. We want to do the opposite. So we subtract 5 from both sides. You have to do it from both sides because it's a balanced equation. And whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So 5 minus 5 gives me 0, and that leaves me with 2n over on this side. And then negative 1 and negative 5, and I think of this as negative 1 plus negative 5. Negative 1 plus negative 5 gives me negative 6. All you do when you're adding two signed numbers is you add them up, and then you keep the common sign. All right? So 2n, divide both by 2. Because the 2 is multiplying by the n, so we do the opposite of it, which would be dividing it. And then if you divide it by both sides, you have a negative dividing a positive, which is going to give you a negative answer. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. And so your answer is n equals negative 3. Let's plug it in to the original equation and see if I get negative 1. Well, 5 plus 2 times negative 3, order of operations tells me I got to multiply first. So I have 5 plus negative 6, which indeed does give me negative 1. And so we are all good. All right, last example for this video. So we got 2/5 r minus 5 equals 7. All right, well, set up our fence. This is going to be what we consider our cow here, and then this is going to be what we consider our chicken over here. So 2/5 r minus 5, let's get rid of the 5 by doing the opposite of it. We're going to add 5 to both sides, right? Apologize about any of the extra noise in the background. This cancels, and it leaves me with 2/5 r over here, and then 7 plus 5 gives me 12. So now what I need to remember is, how do I deal with this fraction? Well, from the last lesson, you should remember that you deal with getting rid of fractions by multiplying by its inverse, or its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply that by 5/2. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. All right? That way, this all cancels out, and you just wind up with your r on this side. And then over here, we're going to turn 12 into a fraction, and you get 12 times 5 over 1 times 2. So you're going to get 60 divided by 2. That's going to give me 30. So if I put this into my original equation, I have 2/5 times 30 minus 5. And if I did it right, that should give me 7. Well, 2/5 times 30, sorry, let me get rid of that nonsense. 2 times 30 is 60, and 60 over 5 is 12. 12 minus 5 is indeed 7. So this works.